Hey, this is Coach Anderson from Mississippi Public Broadcasting Online. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about ACT reading prep. If you are a student, of course, that's interested in taking ACT, to get into someone's college somewhere in the United States of America or abroad or wherever the ACT, of course, is required. One of the things that you can do, of course, to help improve your overall score or your composite score is to do well on the ACT reading and the ACT natural science. And I'm not here today to talk to you about natural science. Trust me, nobody wants me to talk about science. But I am here to talk to you a little bit about what you can do, of course, to improve your score when it comes to ACT reading prep. Today, what we're going to do, of course, is take you through a few tips and strategies that can use and give you some insight in terms of what the ACT reading is all about so that you will have a great guide to a great score. Today, we're going to start with ACT Reading Section 1, Lesson 1, Introduction, Format, and Passage Type. So what we intend to do, of course, is give you an idea of what the passages are about, give you what the format of the test is about, and give you as much information as we can so that we can arm you as best we can to go and make a great score on ACT. First thing, we're going to give you the overview of the reading section. There are a total of 40 questions, and the time allotted to complete those 40 questions is 35 minutes. There are a number of passages. There are 4 things to know. ACT reading passages are designed to measure student reading comprehension, and students should focus on understanding, analyzing, and evaluating text. The next thing, in terms of looking at the types of passages that you will encounter when it comes to ACT, we told you a few moments ago there are 4 types of passages on ACT reading, and they include the prose fiction, social science, humanities, and natural science. And what we'll do, of course, is try to give you a brief explanation of what each one of them contains, and also come back at a later date and go through each one of the different passage types and give you an example of the 5 questions that go along with each of those passage types. First, let's talk about prose fiction. Prose fiction, when we're talking about that as a type of passage, is about literary narratives and excerpts, usually on fiction, from history, from literature, and there's no real restriction in terms of what type of literature. Social science, topics related to human behavior and society. The humanities passage is, focuses on literature, philosophy, and the arts. And then the natural science passages focus on scientific concepts and scientific studies. We're also going to talk to you briefly about the types of questions, of course, that go along, of course, with the ACT reading section. It's important to understand the type of questions that are being answered, asked, so that you can kind of, take some shortcuts in terms of answering those questions. If you can recognize what type of passage is being, being asked, that way you can, create different strategies, of course, to answer each of the questions. Questions in ACT reading section primarily focus on 5 trains of thought. Main ideas, what is the central focus of the passage? Detail, what specific details is the author presenting? Inference, what implication can be drawn from the passage? Author's purpose, why did the author write this passage? And then vocabulary and context. What does a particular word mean when used in this context? And once again, each one of the 4 question types or passage types on the ACT reading test has one of these types of questions. So what we'll do, of course, is that come back at a later time and try to give you a passage and a question type that features each one of these trains of thoughts. Strategies for success. And we're going to go into skimming and active reading. We're going to go into those in a little bit deeper detail in a few moments. But what we want to do right now is to go through and give you an overall view of what you can do, of course, to be successful when it comes to ACT reading. Skimming, quickly identify main ideas and structure. We'll come back to that a little bit later, give you a more in-depth look at skimming. Active reading, highlighting, taking notes, annotations, and underlining important information. Once again, active reading and skimming are the 2 that we'll come back and give you a little bit more in-depth look at. Pacing, set a goal for how much time you use per passage. Practice, utilize as many sample passages as you can to practice strategies. Resources for preparation, the official website for practice materials at act.org. You can, of course, access that site using this particular URL, or you can look at prep books like the ACT Official Prep Guide, Barron's ACT Study Guide, the Princeton Review, ACT Premium Prep, ACT Black Book 2nd edition, or Up Your Score, and ACT Underground Guide. A lot of these online resources that we're talking about are free, and some of them are paid resources. So be careful when you go online, of course, and looking, because there may be a fee that are associated with some of them. But if you go to ACT.org, for the most part, you can find free resources that are readily available to you. Consider joining a study group for tutoring and support like Varsity Tutors. So there are some support groups and some tutorial groups, of course, that you may be interested in joining. I wasn't one of those that needed to be in groups to study. I always found it a little distracting. So you do whatever, of course, makes you feel comfortable. That's the end of lesson 1 in terms of what the format of ACT reading is about. We went through and we told you what the questions were, the types of questions and the types of passages, and we'll jump into that in a little bit more detail as we go along. But today was just about an introduction to get you ready for the heavy lifting that is ahead. And thank you again for coming into ACT reading with Coach Anderson here at Mississippi Public Broadcasting, and we'll see you next time.